So masculinity is dying in men, and the irony is, it feels like it's being born in women. So if you hear about masculinity, you only hear about the negative aspect of masculinity, which is genuinely destroying men in itself, which I'll touch on later, which is about the whole narrative of toxic masculinity, all the men in power are bad and everything. Even all of these gender studies, they're always are always created to push a narrative. Almost all of them, because the ones that actually push the reality of things, they never get to the mainstream. Because why? It's not an agenda to sell. It's not interesting. It does not work in their favor, right? And after looking at this thing from like different angles, I've come to realize that I feel like evolution to some extent is to be blamed. And if I to blame evolution for us getting this far, or for us for things getting this bad, then we should kind of realize that there's nothing that we can do. We cannot change the trajectory, but we can do something. We can evolve in terms of masculinity. As men, we can begin to evolve. Now, yes, I preach for more masculinity, not less masculinity, but masculinity that stands the test of what is coming. And this person it was a lady, I think, I can't remember her name, I think Elba or something. She gave a perspective into it, which I feel like I saw something different, right? He says there are three levels in which men have lost it. One, the labor market, because she used the economics, right? She used one, the labor market, two, education, three, domestic life. If you look at the labor market, a lot of men are checking out of the labor market. Sometimes, right, if you look at the past, and this is very interesting. In the past, the kind of jobs that were available were industrial jobs where men had to move heavy objects. Men were at risk. Men needed physical strength. What that means is the average physical strength of a man then was good, was very practical, was very interesting. But over time, as human beings began to bring up machines, become more efficient in terms of input and output, they created more leverage. In that process, the strength of men were no longer needed. Think about it. Look at the past. Look at the trucks that men used to drive in the past, like 40, 50, 60 years ago. Look at the trucks that are being driven now. These trucks are being driven by women. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's a very good thing to evolve in terms of have better machines, faster machines, more efficient machines. But that process of creating these machines, we created this situation where men no longer need strength. And because according to nature, the mind of a man is somehow connected to his strength. What that means is it's only a very few men, right, who you can see are not so strong physically, but they can be strong mentally. Yeah, it's only a very few cases. But in most cases, the strength of a man is also develops the strength of his mind. But guess what? The moment nature, this is why I say it's not really, I will not really blame the feminist movement alone. I'll blame like evolution, nature itself. The moment we decided to remove the idea of physical strength, mental strength became a thing that just began to die slow there. So what happened? A lot of men began to go into fields that did not require it. And a lot of men seeing that, okay, fine, they are weak physically. At the same time, they are weak mentally. What happens? They kept on drifting. Have you ever realized why? Because I think we need to realize that this idea of ADHD is not a bug. It's not a problem. It is a feature. And a lot of men have ADHD. A lot of boys rather have ADHD. And I'll say this because looking at the symptoms, I think I'm self-diagnosed. The keyword here is self. So that means it may not be true, but I've seen the symptoms already, and I kind of realized that after doing some research, I realized that it's not a bug, it is a feature in the sense that men were designed to go out there and hunt. And ADHD makes the person hyper focused on the things that are important to that person. So what that means is that a lot of the times, the things that are being taught in the classroom is not important. Telling people to sit down for long hours is not important. But I think I've skipped on to the educational aspect. But the labor market, the point is that since that strength is no longer needed, what that means is that we have built efficient systems, but a lot of men did not upgrade from the whole strength-based approach to mental-based approach. And like I said, the mind and body are heavily linked. So that means if you don't, that is the reason why go to the gym is not an advice to build your strength alone. It's an advice to build a level of confidence. One, two. I've ever realized that the men who know how to fight think different. If you don't believe me, I think I made a video talking about how I have seen stupid people, but I have never seen somebody who is stupid and knows how to fight. Because apart from the fact that fighting makes you think on your feet, right? Fighting also makes you mentally tough. If you look at the way UFC fighters speak, it's completely different. People may call it arrogance, but some cases is arrogance quite alright. But some cases is is masculinity in its undiluted form. Keyword there is undiluted form. So zoom out. The second aspect now is education. A lot of men are checking out of the educational system. Why? Because they kind of realize that the path behind education is not really for them anymore. I mean, if you're checking out of the job market, so what's the point of schooling? The point of schooling is go to school, get a good job, and move on. But now they're dropping out of school. Yes, we often see on this internet people who drop out of school and create something very, very good. Good for them. That's a very small minority of the population. The same way gender studies only use a small minority of men. You say, okay, these men are in power. What that means is all men that have a problem. And I always say that women do not really have a strong realization of what they talk about when they say men. Most of the time, they're referring to a group of men that they have zoomed their focus lens into. And same thing though, thanks to gender war, a lot of men don't realize that the women you see on the internet are just they may be a large percentage, but it's a percentage regardless. There are other women out there who think different from the women you see on the internet. There's a complete dynamic shift. And if you don't understand this, you're going to keep getting lost. Now, if you think about it, in the labor market, there's no need to develop physical strength, and in the process, men are losing it mentally. In the education sector, they are also losing it. Now, the next part is domestic life. If you cannot find yourself in these two markets, there's a high chance you will get lost in your domestic life. Because if you cannot really provide, what do you fit? Mind you, I always feel like human beings, we have gone too far from our nature. Men in the days used to hunt. They used to be aggressive. They used to be, because whether I like it or not, aggression is a part of masculinity. It is a part of masculinity. I'm referring to physical masculinity though. It's a part of it. It is essential. It has its benefit. So when men have no idea what it feels like to be aggressive, do you know what really happens? You kind of realize that he will find it difficult to find his place. Yes, now women are providing for some men. I understand that, right? But it's not the natural order. And you often see those men feel like they have been beaten from life. And if you understand the effect of the way women choose their partners, you get to realize that first of all, they try to go for men that are either on their level. No, they don't go for men that are above their level. If they cannot find, they go for men on their level. Rarely would they go for a man below his level. And men instinctively know this, that if she's above me, right, there's no respect, right? And well, please, caution, quick one. I would not suggest any man push his woman down just because she's doing better. I would always say, as a man, one, aim to be the best you can be. Apart from that, aim to become a well-rounded man. What do you mean by a well-rounded man? The idea that, okay, I have money, because of my money I can provide, and because I can provide, I am the bomb, I am the thing. No, that time has passed. There's no going back to it. What you should do is this: aim to become a well-rounded man. A well-rounded man is a man who has money, he has character, he's good with women, he's sociable, he's developing all areas of his life. What that means is he's a kind of blend you cannot see anywhere again. He's a kind of blend you cannot see anywhere again. And speaking of building a character that's interesting, you can do it. We live in a world where you can do it with almost anything these days. Be a rich painter, right? Who is also a leader in his community, who also brings men together, who is very caring, who is a good leader. Because I feel like moving forward, we're going to have to reshape the kind of men moving forward. We cannot go back, right? And the people who are going to lose, because there's a slow gap, there's a very wide gap that's happening right now in the dating markets, where it has always existed, but it's becoming much more obvious. And this is how it has always worked. We had a very small group of men who had access to all the women. I'm referring to history. Now, what happened is the men who did not have access to women became very aggressive. They became very, very annoying, right? They became very, very irritating. So what happens is we created monogamy. What that means is that nature did not create monogamy. It was man-made that created monogamy. Almost every man now has a partner. Although the men at the top still had multiple partners, and it has always been there. Even in monogamy, paternity fraud is a way of keeping polygamy in the system and in our minds. But right now, it is playing out itself again. The pendulum is swinging, and I'm telling you that. I'm not telling you to date multiple people. I'm not telling you to do that, because if it's in your nature, if it's what you feel like doing, you should do it without feeling bad about it. Because me, I suggest I push towards polygamy. But some people with their nature and the way that they want to do it, it's okay if you don't want to do it. One thing you should realize is you should be able to move on. You should be able to realize that the future of masculinity needs to evolve. So one thing I'll say is that I know a lot of men have gone their own way. I have a lot of men who have become incels, men who are leaving the dating scene, men who have given up on life generally. But this is what I'm saying. The dating scene has moved on, but the masculinity is evolving, right? So what I mean evolving does not mean that it's dying. Nope. We still need men to be aggressive. We need men to be what men have always been, but more. We need men to be much more flexible, but still aggressive. We need men who have some key things of masculinity that can never ever go is: one, aggression; two, I think self-mastery; strength, because if there's no way you can call masculinity without calling strength, whether it's physical or mental. Irony is you need both of them. Leadership, responsibility. So what that means is that these few things that I just mentioned are things that must be present in the new masculinity. Without these things, it falls. And people think that this whole gender studies or pushing women ahead is helping women. No, it's not helping women, because there are more single women than ever before. There are more single men than ever before. And whether you like it or not, as a man, one of the best things you can do is actually to create your family that you genuinely want to create, right? That means and you're going to have to up your game by yourself. But this is why we need to come together as men, to think together as men, and act together as men. So we need the brotherhood. If you made it this far, you're somebody who takes yourself very, very serious, and you understand and see the need for masculinity to evolve. So I want you to share this video with somebody else. Let's see who is going to find it very valuable. That action of sharing that video is going to cause like-minded men or people to come together. And in that process, we can actually form a community of men and evolve masculinity to what masculinity is. And I forgot to mention that, yes, the new wave of masculinity is not the one that's going to evolve your father, nope. Because everything that happens in the digital space, all that means is we're most likely going to have to meet on the digital space, form a community, and have healthy ideas of what masculinity is supposed to feel like, what masculinity is supposed to evolve into. So if you feel like you want to be part of the community, share this video first. Let's have like-minded people. Let's talk in the comment section. Thank you very much. Go ahead and share this video.